Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we will be understanding very basic concept in ReactJS. We will be creating a functional component, adding one element with the hello world, and the same we will be importing it to the app.js. So this demonstrate how we can create one component, add it to our main component, and then render the same. Okay, so this is very basic way of starting any function, any programming language or the frameworks. So I'll be using the code sandbox, which is very popular tool for the interviews and all. So you should have a proper hands-on with this tool as well. So I'll be creating a simple React.js template, which gives few files initially, and then it will render few data. As you can see, there is app.js, index.js, styles.css, package.json, which will have uh, the dependencies. Okay, so it's already rendering some data which is already written in the app.js. Okay, so our task is to create one functional component and import it to this app.js and render it in the main page. Okay, so for now let us remove this part. Okay, so because we have removed, there is nothing to display. Now our first step is to create one functional component. So when we say a functional component is basically we create one file, add our data inside it, and we just import that function from that file to our main component. Okay, so let me not make you more confused about this. So let me create one file, say greet.js. Basically this is where we will be writing our component. So this is one of the component we can see. So I'm going to export this as default, which I'm writing a function with the name greet. Okay, so here we have to return something. So what is the task is that we have to create one element and print it as hello world, right? So for that we have multiple things. We can use div, h1, h2 and many things. So I'll be using h1 for now. Okay, and inside this I'll be printing hello world. Okay, so if you see what we're doing here, we are exporting this function greet by default. Like however we are not changing it as anything, like we cannot import it as some other name. We have to import it as greet itself, and then we are returning one value, one element inside this function. So my task is now I'll have to import that here, right? So I can directly write a greet function which automatically imports in our uh, code sandbox. So what is happening here, this is the file name that is written inside sandbox src greet. So sandbox src and greet, from that file you are trying to fetch a function called greet. Because we are already exporting there, we can easily import it here, and the same we are calling it here. Okay, so what is this function? This is the app.js, which is a main function. How it is main, I'll tell you. Okay, in this we are returning one div element, which is a parent element, and inside that we are calling one greet element. Okay, so why is this written like this is because it's similar to other non-semantic elements. Okay, this is similar to other elements with a closing tag automatically. So this acts like one element itself. So we are calling this greet. Okay, so when we are returning this, it returns it initially, basically it calls this greet element here, and that will be rendered there. Okay, so now to understand more, you just have to understand it, like how is this being rendered on the page. Okay, so basically always remember whatever we display on the web is always HTML and CSS. Okay, so we should have one basic HTML element, that is this. Okay, this is a public, if you see, this is a public, and this is the HTML page that is rendered on the web. Okay, on the browser or anything, right? So our task is to render those inside this HTML element. So if you see, we are creating one root element and keeping it empty to make sure that whatever comes from our other components, add it in this root element. So indicating that, so whatever we are doing there, comes here. Okay, so that's the first point. So this root element is what we will be using in the index.js. Okay, so if you see, we are trying to get that element using get element by id root, which means we are taking the reference of that element into root element, and that root element is what we are creating here, and inside that root element is what we are rendering our one more component, that is app. Okay, so just don't get confused. There is a root id which is written already. We are trying to fetch that id as a reference, and to that id we are rendering some data. Okay, what is the data? It's a app. App is the component. We're just saying that whatever is shown in the app, or whatever is imported or displayed in the app, just show it in our root. Okay, that's why we have a app.js as a parent component. So all the components that we write is basically imported in this the main app.js, and that automatically goes to our index.html. Okay, just to make you very clear about this, so first the flow is like this. So suppose I am writing one grid component, is basically that goes to the index.js there here, and this basically goes to the root element, which is nothing but a root element which is defined inside our index.html. Okay, this is how the flow is. So ultimately whatever we render here is gonna go to the index.html, which is nothing but a html simple html page. Okay, and this greet is nothing but a function component which is defined here. So if you see, if I change anything, it will be, so it is automatically rendered here as well. Correct. So that's the beauty about the React.js. Now, one more thing I must say is, so we are, if you see the styling, right, it is coming from here. Let me remove this and show you. So this, there was some styling, right? It is removed now. Is because we were we were saying that what we were doing here was, we were saying that whatever we are defining inside this, please apply this style to it. So this is the style name, that is app, which we were giving. So if you go to the, this comes basically from the styles.css, which is defined here, where we give a text align as center and font family is also given. Okay, so same if you want to change some color or to the main thing, so I'll be doing here for just for a correct. So that automatically goes there. So this is how the flow is to understand. Okay, this is a very basic flow of how the component works, how it is routed and displayed on the HTML page, and how a functional component we can write and import it into the app.js. Very basic. Okay, in further videos we will understand more in depth about what are props, states, and further hooks. Okay, and we will do some fun assignments as well on the same.